So my first official foray into the Culture series by Iain M. is the book The Player of Games. And I'm not entirely sure how this is reflective of the series or what this book says about the culture in general or how the series will play out or be structured or will evolve in time. I know none of that. What I do know is this book was great. Like I said, today we are talking about The Player of Games by Iain M. and this will be a spoiler-free review, so if you have not read this book, feel free to stick around. I will not be talking about anything specific. Now, the Culture series is a series that I have been sold over and over again for years now. My main genre that I read the most of is science fiction. It's probably my favorite genre of all time, and ever since I've been telling people that, they've been saying, you need to read The Culture. And I finally kind of waded my way into it. Although, to be honest, everything that I have been able to look up about The Culture in preparation for this read doesn't sound very interesting. It's like The Culture is a utopian society in the future where need has been eradicated. Essentially, work has been eradicated. People sit around all day, every day in luxury and excess, and they have no wants or needs for anything in this grand utopian society of perfection of every kind. Really, the biggest problem these people have is being bored because everything is done for them in perpetuity and in perfection, and everything's just grand. And I'm like, that sounds fine. As a future society, good for them. As a narrative structure for a series of books, sounds pretty boring. Sounds like there's not a lot of excitement to be had in this structure of a society. So I don't know. I was like, I'm more than happy to see where this goes, of course. And with all of the wonderful things that I hear, especially from certain other creators that I trust their opinion, who just speak so highly of this series, I was like, well, let's go. Let's see what you have. So in this seemingly boring society, which sounds like a relatively boring setup to tell boring stories, we enter The Player of Games, which is a story about a guy who plays games, which doesn't in and of itself sound very interesting. The book is fascinating. It is so good. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of nuts what he's able to do and how he's doing it, and just everything about it's really well done. We have a guy who is a board game player, and he's pretty much best in class. He kind of just stomps all over everybody. Then he is approached and he's given the opportunity to go to an entirely different society, an empire on the other side of the galaxy, and play their game, which is the most sophisticated, essentially board game, although it's kind of like the size of a room, and it's multi-tiered and multi-leveled, and it's just the most in-depth game ever created, kind of. And he gets this opportunity and he goes, and then what we get from there is this man playing, because the empire plays this game, and that's how they determine who will be emperor, is who can play and win at this board game, essentially. And he goes over there to play, and what follows is a series of games that are almost, they could be matches of any sort. They could be battles in like a lesser book. It is fascinating how engaging he is able to make this game and make these matches and make following the character. Then all the while we start in the culture and we move to the empire, and we get very little actual detail about what the culture is and who they are and how they work and how they function, what's their underlying motives, and how everything goes there. For a culture book, there's not a lot of culture in it, but that's kind of one of the best parts about it, because we leave the culture to go over here to the empire. Then it's this study on what the empire is and how they work and how they function and all of the structures in place and what the society looks like and what the people are like in the society, seen from the perspective of a man from the culture, who then even starts to kind of adopt certain thought processes and aspects of the empire after being there for so long and speaking the language and getting so embedded in their language and their culture and their games. He starts to take on kind of traits of theirs, all while getting glimpses, brief glimpses and flashes of what the culture looks like and what their real motives are and what they're doing here, why they sent him in the first place, what he's really supposed to be doing there, what the whole point of this whole structure and story is. So we're studying two different groups of people at the same time, one being the Empire, and we're studying it directly. And we are really talking about it, looking at it, dissecting it. And the other one is the culture. And we're kind of looking at it and studying it indirectly. And it's kind of being developed in the background, not really as explicitly as the Empire is. But make no mistake, we are still dissecting and studying the thoughts and actions of the culture just as much as we are the Empire, all while being built around this framework of essentially a board game. And it's so interesting because you are just as locked into what's happening in the Empire as you are to trying to figure out what's going on in the background over here with the culture, all while being completely locked into these games and the tension of the matches and who's he playing and how's he winning and what's going on and the dynamics of the politics that he's embedded in order to play these matches. And they're trying to get him to either win or lose or bow out or step down, or all of these different moving pieces that are trying to get him to where he ultimately will end up in the end of the book, both by the culture, by himself, his own motivations, his own actions, and then, of course, all of the pushing and pulling and prodding from the Empire. It was way better than this book had any right to be. It was really impressive what he was able to do with the structure of the book, with the storytelling aspects of the book. And like I said, this had the potential to be so dry, so dull, and the most bland book ever written. And he found a way to make it fun, engaging, and exciting all the way throughout. If I would have had time at the end of the month, I would have tried really hard to squeeze in Consider Phlebas right at the last minute, just so I had a more well-rounded idea of what the culture series and books look like and get a better entry point. I would have back-to-backed them, although I just kind of ran right into October and I just didn't have time before I started my spooky season reads for the year. But I was that fascinated with the culture and the way that this book in particular played out and worked that I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more of what he was going to do with the way he is going to piece all this together and the way he's going to work it all together. I'll be going back to this one for sure. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll give The Player of Games a 9 out of 10. I think this was a really good book. If you have not read it, I would highly recommend it. And I'd say obviously have never read any other culture books, and this is my entry point, but I'd say this is a great entry point, and I kind of pushed back on it. I really wanted to start with Consider Phlebas because I'm stubborn when it comes to publication date normally, but this is the Patreon pick. This is the one that won, and so I was kind of forced to enter here, and I think it was great. It was a really great entry point, and I'm really happy I started here because this was a really good book. Anyway, I want to say thank you to It's Just Marvin because he, of course, is the patron who nominated this one for my read this month, and I loved it. It was great. Like I said, 9 out of 10. And as always, everybody, the link for my Patreon's in the description below. The link for my Discord's in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.